Hi guys, this is Bevan and Mike here with Cannaforce, great CBD reviews and CBD.how. And today we are going to be talking to DB Labs regarding some issues that have been recently made public regarding heavy metals and lead in CBD products. So first, we'd like to introduce Ben Chu, director of DB Labs here in Las Vegas, Nevada, who has done some work into this issue. So thank you, Mr. Chu, Dr. Chu, Ben Chu, for taking time today to talk to us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So in the recent several months, more specifically in July, some publicity has been brought about heavy metal testing in hemp and CBD products, mainly in oils and tinctures, things like that. Some of it came back and was publicly made aware that the graduated droppers, so for those of you listening, the droppers that are marked like 0.25 milliliters, 0.5 milliliters, so the droppers with numbers on them so you can measure your dosage, they found that some of those had lead in the paint or heavy metals in the paint. So Ben, could you tell us a little bit more about your experience with kind of into this, some insight, I guess, basically?
Yes. So one of the tests that we run is for heavy metals. So we look for mercury, cadmium, lead, and arsenic in the products. And there's a couple sources of where this could come from. It could be, from when the hemp is grown, if those metals are in the soil, or if they're in the water that is used, or possibly the nutrients if you're adding that into there. Those are your sources of where this could be coming from in the plants. And then when this goes for extraction, there is a chance that can come out into your extract, into your oils, and then on into your final product. So there are limits that a lot of states have put in place for the marijuana industry. And so a lot of those have been sort of just used in the CBD side of things, on the hemp side, to at least give us some sort of reference as to what, some portion of the government has said is a safe level. And a lot of times, we will screen the materials, and sometimes you see it in there, sometimes you don't. So if it's been cleaned at that point, then it gets bottled. And at that point, again, it can be tested at that point. And that's where we run into this with a few times where, a customer sent us a sample from their bulk tank where they made the material. They sent us a sample of that. We screened it. It looked perfectly fine. And then later on, they said, okay, well, here's the final product. And suddenly we were hitting a very high levels of lead onto there. So it happened a couple times as we're starting to trace back, to when they pulled the sample, things like that. And we kind of got more of that information onto it. It started to lean more towards the packaging materials. And, where they're sourcing these packages from, a lot of it are coming from foreign countries. And ideally, if they've done their homework, they should get a certificate of analysis, from that packaging material as to what is in there. Not every one of them will run heavy metals. So that was one of the issues that we had. We said, hey, can you show us the, your certificate of analysis for the droppers? And they sent something in, and I say, well, they didn't test for this. So what we ended up doing was we took the dropper and we took a little razor blade and we scraped off that little bit of paint there, or we just took the whole glass dropper part of it and did some extractions off of there as well as we could. So our instrument is only really designed, or our analysis is only really designed for looking at the metals. You have to do like full, very strong acid digestion of this to be able to pull out those 4 heavy metals. So that's under the assumption that it is present either in the flour or in the concentrate. So when this comes on paint or on something else like that one, it doesn't completely digest. So we couldn't give it has 3% lead or something like that, a really accurate number in there. But if we picked it up at all from there, we saw a pretty big peak for that in response to the lead in there. And so that just told us, yes, they're using a lead-based paint. Was the best that we could tell them on there, but we couldn't give them an exact number as on there. But that's something that where, when people are ordering these packaging materials, they really need to start looking out and watching out for things like that.
All right, sounds good. I know COA after COA, it sounds like it's going to. My one question was, in your opinion, I know you guys, I'm not sure if you've done this test or not, but once the tincture, oil, distillate, whatever you want to call it, is put into the packaging and a dropper is put in there that, let's say, has a high content of lead, any idea or possibly future tests to determine how long it takes for that lead to leach out and get into the product? So, for example, if you made a new product today, now maybe in 6 months your level of leads would be at like a toxic huge level, but the first month when they, you know, test the oil by itself, it's not, so you're not going to see it. Is there any research into that yet, or is that kind of like, it seems like it's a new frontier kind of into this ordeal? But
Right. Unfortunately, that is very difficult to predict. It depends on a lot of things. It depends on what form that lead is in. And then it also depends on what it's soaking in. And this is where you get into, it's in the chemistry. And it's pretty much, like dissolves like. So oil and water do not mix.
right.
And, if you have, basically a mixture of oil and water, they're going to stay pretty much separated onto it. You're not going to extract out the oil into the water phase there, or anything else that's in there. So whatever form that lead is in, and that's something we don't know exactly what form it is in, it may want to stay in, in a water phase. It may want to stay in an oil phase. And depending on what that actual compound of lead is, it's going to determine that. And so that makes it really hard to predict, or to give a general guideline that's of what you have. This is what's going to happen onto there. So unfortunately, that's a question that can honestly only be answered with experiments.
Right.
So, and that will depend every time on the matrix that you're putting into there. Are you putting in a tincture that is, an oil-based tincture, or are you putting in something that's an alcohol-based tincture? So those would give very, very different extraction properties to that.
All right. So I guess to be safe, probably test your droppers before you put anything in the bottle, it sounds like. So
Yes, I think that's a good idea, or at least get someone to certify, the manufacturer to certify that they're not using a lead-based paints on there.
Yeah, I have a question. Thank you for being here and just talking to our audience. Have you heard anything from other labs or other states that this is becoming a problem? And if you haven't, as this time goes on, do you have any thoughts on if local authorities or maybe the feds will bring some kind of guidelines on how to deal with the situation?
So again, unfortunately, because of the very nature of this product, it's, for the marijuana side of things, there are no federal guidelines because it's federally illegal. So the federal government is not going to step in to say anything about this. I guess if it is a safety issue, they may want to deal with it, but they're kind of leaving that to each individual state for that. And so then when you get into the CBD side of things, there's very little regulations from the states right now on this. So certain, we do send reports to the Nevada Department of Agriculture for any company that is based in Nevada here. In addition, if any CBD producer wants to sell through a Nevada dispensary, then they have to follow all of the marijuana requirements onto there. So then that's when that side of things would take a look at those reports. But from my understanding, most states right now are primarily been interested in the residual THC that's in the CBD products. And that's what they've been primarily concentrating on. So unfortunately, I'm not certain if, too many states are looking that closely at that. I do know a couple of states, have made requests that certain tests be run. But, if we're not we're not based in those states. So it is up to the clients who get these reports back to be reporting back to those states as to what they want on there. So unfortunately, it's just we say we thought, marijuana was the Wild West. CBD is a real Wild West out there right now, where it is hard to find any regulations out there, even at the state level.
No.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So, no, thank you so much for informing us in the audience about this, and more so for informing the businesses. A lot of people don't know about this, the packaging, and we also wanted to comment that through DB Labs and through Cannaforce, we can help set you guys up with getting your graduated droppers tested, which would be a great idea to do before you go and make about 10,000 bottles and find out later there's lead in your droppers. So, do you guys have if somebody sends in their graduated droppers, is there a time frame? Is it about a week to 2 weeks now for something like that, or?
It's probably somewhere between 3 to 5 days.
Okay.
So.
All right. We weren't sure with scraping, it's a little bit harder process to manually take all that stuff off. So that's cool.
Yeah. If you send us the whole item, we can probably do that. Just play with it. And again, it's going to be just, hey, is there lead present or not? Which I think is good enough, as opposed to, an exact number of, 3% lead or 5% lead, which doesn't really matter. As long as there's lead in there, then it's going to be a problem.
Right. How many droppers, I would say, would you like them to send in? How quantity-wise to get a fair overview of that?
Probably 2 or 3, just so we can run a confirmation just in case we do pick up something. So.
Okay. Bevan, did you have any more questions?
Oh, this is great. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Yes.
Yeah, we would thank you so much. And we'd also like to give a big thank you to Ben Lerner over at DB Labs, who helped set up this interview. He's always been very helpful, and he's the one that you guys will be potentially dealing with lab tests through Cannaforce. I'd just like to remind the viewers and the listeners that, doing a heavy metals test on your graduated droppers and your packaging, the cost of that is going to way outweigh the cost of a lawsuit. If you're using a dropper you don't have a COA on or whatnot, and it does test heavy metal positive, you're going to have all your products recalled by the FDA. You're out all that money, and this could simply be avoided now by running one more test. So I'd rather, be safe than sorry if I was in that position. So we thank you once again, Ben. We really, really, really appreciate it. Could you give us a little bit of just, if somebody wanted to reach out to your labs, what would be the best way to do that?
I say just check out our website, which is www.dblabslv.com, and all of our contact information is on there.
Perfect. Thank you so much for being on the call. Bevan, did you have anything else?
Nope. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Great.
All right. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you.